Well, I know we've been talking about doing it for a while now because we've got a lot of similar interests as well in topics, especially in Stoicism, discipline, building the good habits. So I thought we'd talk about Stoicism first because I know we both like to apply it into our own lives. And for those who don't know, Stoicism is a type of philosophy you can use to just make yourself a better rounded person, whether that's in your work, personal life or relationship life. But I wanted to ask you how you apply Stoicism in your own life.
Sure. The first time I ever heard of Stoicism was the memento mori, the saying of that. That's where I was intrigued by the whole philosophy around it. I think it was actually in a podcast that I saw somebody talking about that, and obviously it means remember your death. That's right.
Yeah.
That's literally the translation of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and in obviously the non-morbid sense of just remember. And it's that's the first thing I ever saw. And then from that, I started reading Ryan Holiday's The Daily Stoic as well. So I suppose for me, that's probably the number one thing that I have always kept with me is just in everything. You know how like sometimes when we all know somebody who they go through like a bout of being like depressed or something like that. I feel like this is probably going to be a really controversial statement, but I feel like I could never get to that place purely because of that saying, like remember your death. So I think that's probably, to answer your question a bit more direct, that's a way that I would use it. Also, is it Marcus Aurelius, the Meditations? That's his book, isn't it? Yeah, and I remember somebody, or it might have been a video that I watched about that, where they said the time that he was actually writing those, he was like just some guy who like would sleep in a tent on a beach and just write these things. He never had no idea at that time that centuries later, and they were always just like such. I know you want to discuss presence, but I think that it sort of leans into that a little bit, Stoicism, right?
Living in the moment, just don't take anything for granted, I guess you can say. Because like you say, remember your death, remember you will die. You don't want to spend the next, whatever happened to you a few minutes ago being pissed off about that. Yeah. Life's too short to be worried about that. Just be grateful for what you do have now.
Yeah, exactly.
And focus on the things that do matter to you and the importance of them things. But it's funny you mentioned memento mori because mine was amor fati, a love of fate, embracing whatever happens to you or is happening to you or will happen to you and using it for your own advantage. Like you say with Marcus Aurelius, one of the quotes I've got for him is to love only what happens, no greater harmony. And just don't complain about what's happened to you.
Love that.
Using it as your own advantage. So something bad happens, what can you learn from this? Can it make me a better person for this happening to me? And I don't see anything, there's nothing, you can always turn a negative into a positive. It just depends on that mindset you have. Yeah,
I listened to a podcast in the gym the other day with, I can't remember who it was. It was on the Williamson, yeah. Yeah, it was on his podcast. It was his latest episode. I can't remember who the guy was, but it was so interesting. I listened to it for ages. And he basically, what you just said then, that's what he was talking about. There was like a 20-minute window where they was talking about that.
And I guess it applies to embracing challenges and opportunities as they come to you. Don't shy away from them. Use them for your own gain. Learn from them. Become a better person for them. Grow from them. Yeah. And that's why I kind of like Stoicism as well. It gives you that... It gets you back into control of your own mind. Just focusing on what you can control and letting go of what you can't.
Yeah.
And that was kind of one of the next questions I was going to ask you as well was how do you learn to let go of what you can't control and to focus more on what you can? Yeah,
good question. I was actually going to say as well, Stoicism is probably the topic that I actually have the least knowledge on. I love the Stoic philosophy, and I think most of it is guided by being present, right? It is guided by living a more present moment. Living more present moment. And obviously what you just asked me there is a major part of that. What do I do in that situation? I don't really know how to answer that.
I was going to say...
What would you do? Let me throw it back at you and then let me see if it's something that I'd agree with.
So there was a quote I was going to use again with Marcus Aurelius, which is, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Yeah. Realize this and you will find strength, which I think is so key because learning to let go of what you can't control, realizing that, say like with traffic, for example, you can't control how other people are driving or the traffic in front of you. You can only control how you react to that.
Yeah.
And whining about, like you see some people whining or moaning about it, saying, oh, I'm stuck in this traffic.
Yeah.
It does no good for you. There's no benefits from that. You may feel a little bit of relief of stress in that one moment, but then you're still stuck in traffic anyway.
Yeah.
But what you can do is accept it and say, is there anything I can do about this?
Yeah.
No. Don't worry about it then.
Yeah. I see now. I see what you're saying. Yeah. I remember I voice noted you recently about the thing with the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a time that I kind of used that, I guess.
Explain that situation just for people that don't know the
background.
Yeah, sure.
So I just, obviously because I'm quite busy, sometimes I have to go to the gym in the evenings, which I notoriously don't like doing because it's so busy where my gym is. And for the longest time I would walk in there and it would be so rammed and so packed on all of the equipment that I want to go on that I'd just turn around and walk out and I'd just be like, I'm not doing it. Whereas now, as I've mentioned to you in my voice note to you, that I've kind of, I guess, taken a more stoic approach to it. As I'm driving to the gym, I'm aware that obviously my schedule hasn't gone exactly to plan. I know I'm going to be there later. I know it's going to be busy. I accept that it's going to be busy. And when I go in there, I just kind of I kind of gamify it and make it a bit more fun. I'm like, okay, well, it's going to be busy. I'm not going to be able to run straight on to what I want to go on. Yeah. What can I do? If I'm doing a push day in the gym, what can I do in there? Let's make it exciting. Like that machine right over there, that could be used instead of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I've done that 3 or 4 times now. And every time I've got the biggest pump and I've had the best time. Like I've made it a bit more exciting. So I think that's a good example. And it's funny you say about the thing with the traffic as well, because I remember reading something about how, and I don't know whether it's a true story, and I'm probably going to butcher the anecdote, but how being in the car, being stuck in traffic, there could be like roadworks or something ahead, but you never know, in some other parallel universe, you could have been involved in a car accident further down the line that obviously this has prevented you in some weird way from being in. So I think remembering that as well. You know, for me, all of it, as much as out of all of the topics that you said we'll be discussing today, Stoicism is definitely something that I don't know as much about. I think that's really down to the fact that the way Ryan Holiday's book is, you're supposed to read one a day.
Yeah.
And I like to be more in control of how many pages I want to read a day. So maybe if you know of any other books on Stoicism that are not like that, then I would definitely be up for it.
I've got another one. I need to remember the name of the person. I'll send you it as well.
Yeah.
It's just a book on Stoic lessons, but one of them, like there's only a few different chapters in there. But one of the key ones for me, which I think is, for me, one of the key points in Stoicism is control. The dichotomy of control is focusing on what you can't control. Letting go of what you can't control and focusing more on what you can. And like with other people, I think you mentioned this on the voice note as well, or when we talked about it in person, about how all these other people in the gym as well at the same time as you can't have control over that. And some people get annoyed by that and say, oh, why is everyone in here? Why is everyone in the gym right now? But they're in there for the same reasons as you. They're wanting to get better. They're wanting to improve themselves. Exactly. And I think you also mentioned, going back to what we can and can't control, because I know you normally go in the mornings. So that's why you have more control over it yourself. So you normally go in the mornings to try and prevent all that going at the busy times.
Yep.
So but I was going to say as well, because I've got on here the 4 virtues of Stoicism, which is, I believe I got this from front of Ryan Holiday as well. I think I learned from him. But the first one is courage. So embracing the difficult situations like Amorphati, embracing them challenges and opportunities, deciding what kind of person you want to be in them moments. Yep. Do you want to embrace them or run away from them? The second one is temperance, doing the right thing, the right amount in the right way.
I remember that word, temperance. And that's also the thing of sort of integrity, knowing what the right thing is to do and doing that thing, and doing less of the things that you shouldn't be doing. That's what temperance is, right?
Yeah. And then the next one was justice, doing the right thing, no matter the personal risk towards you. So even if you know something may happen to you, but you know it's the right thing to do, you're just doing it anyway. Because like you say, integrity, that kind of goes into that one as well. Even though they all link, I think integrity is a big part of the justice one, sticking to your values as well in that. And then the last one is wisdom, which is finding the right kind of information. Because people just, like, you get people that love books and they'll just read a load of books, but does actually any of them impact them, or is there anything meaningful to them? What kind of information is useful for you in your own life? Because some people for me, I'm not a big fan of fiction books. I like like some books I do like because of the imagination. You're a bit more creative for having to visualize the story in your own mind. But for me, the non-fiction books, because I feel like that's the right kind of information for me, especially ones that are going to help me improve my own mind or help me on my own journey of personal growth and development. So I try and stick to them sort of books.
Yep.
But obviously, it's still good to read non-fiction. It's still good to read fiction books as well, because otherwise you kind of lose that creativity side, that imagination, because people just love watching films or TV,
of course,
and then it's already there for them. Don't really have to visualize or imagine anything, which I do think, that's why I kind of still like fiction, but lean more towards the non-fiction side, because that is what I feel the right kind of information for me to help me. But do you feel you apply these to your own life, then, 4 virtues?
Let's go through them one by one and ask me.
So go through courage first. So embracing difficult situations.
Yes, I would say yes, definitely. Moving here into the podcast studios, when we first moved in here, I'd been sort of freelance filmmaking and filming podcast externally for people. And I knew that I wanted to get my own place, but at the time I didn't really have enough clients to warrant doing that. And it definitely took a lot of courage for me to be like, okay, I've just got to have the vision. I've just got to see that in the future, we are going to have enough clients. We are going to be able to afford to do it. And things are going really well. So that did take that. And I think that I'd agree with that quite heavily, actually. I'm quite good at doing the hard thing, and knowing the journey ahead is about to be hard, but just being like, fuck it, just get on with it and just do it. So I think, I'd agree with that one for sure.
What about temperance? Doing the right thing in the right amount in the right way? Because I know that one's a bit more difficult to do at times.
I would say no, definitely something I need to work on. I'm a very honest person. So I would be lying if I sat there and said that that's the truth about that. And I don't mean that I'm a really nasty person in real life. I don't mean that. I just mean that.
I know you're not.
I just mean that, 5 or 6 of my friends are there having a McDonald's. Am I going to always be like, no, I'm not having that. I'm going to eat the steak.
Yeah.
No, I'm probably going to have the McDonald's. Do I go to the pub quite often with the boys and watch the football and drink 20 Guinnesses? Yeah, I do that quite often too. Skip the gym 4 or 5 days in a row sometimes. So that, definitely that's something I need to work on is knowing what the right thing is to do in all situations and just doing it. And obviously doing less of the stuff that I know is a bit more destructive to my health.
I think it's good you know them things anyway, because then some people just sort of ignore it and don't really worry about it and just carry on doing that in week in and week out. But the fact that you know they're the things you need to improve on is already a major positive, I think, because you know where you can start and where you can start to build from that. Yeah,
sure. Yeah, I think with that as well, the other thing is, you're right in saying that, and I do see where there are things that I need to be better on. But really, for me, I'd say it really is around food more than anything else. Because I know I just said about drinking 20 Guinnesses in a pub. Like that, I don't drink 20 Guinnesses in a pub. I don't even know why I just said that.
No.
The maximum I drink in a pub is maybe 7 or 8 over the course of a day if the football's on, and it's once in a blue moon, which actually leads me on to something that I wanted to talk about in a previous podcast that I did. I've done like a shorter podcast with the guys that we film in the other studio.
Yeah.
And they were talking about, they were all like recovering. I don't even know what I'm talking about. This is completely off topic, complete side quest.
It's okay,
but,
go ahead.
They were talking about like how everyone should quit alcohol and it's really bad for you. And whilst I don't obviously promote alcohol, and it's not that I think I just don't agree with that. My philosophy and my approach to that is it depends on what your relationship is with it.
Yeah,
I have a really good relationship with alcohol. I could not drink for the next 10 years if I didn't want to. I have no like hidden stuff that when I drink I become really like bad or anything. I just needed to put that out there just in case anyone thought I had issues with alcohol. But yeah,
no, I'd agree with that completely as well. I think because like things like Alan Watts said, you could live a long life in a miserable way, or you could live a short life for the things you enjoy doing. Why would you want to? I get with longevity as well. It's important, but you don't want to be miserable all your life. If you enjoy drinking every now and then, there's nothing too harmful about that. It's when it becomes every day or it becomes like an addiction. That's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah. And obviously, I know a lot of people because we film so many different types of podcasts. a lot of them do have similar sort of veins. So I hear a lot of stories, and I know there's people out there that can't have a pint of beer, for example, because it leads to 2, which leads to 7, which leads to cocaine, for example, or something along those lines. Whereas I could go for a roast dinner on a Sunday with my family and have 2 Guinnesses, then go home.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Don't need to drink anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I can take it or leave it. I just enjoy it. I just do enjoy it. I enjoy being with my family and having a drink.
Oh, I'd agree with that. It's good to enjoy the things as well. I know maybe once in a while I may have a drink as well, like a celebration or something like that. I know it's not something. And then again, if I'm going to do it, I know when I'm going to stop. I know what the limit is for me.
Yeah.
And it's just going back to what I agree with Stoicism as well, going back to what you can control. And I have control over that, my mindset. I'm not going to let my body or the way I feel just take control over that. If I need to stop, I will stop. So you do
drink alcohol?
It's rare. It's very rare. I can't remember. I've not had a drink in a while now.
And that's just a personal choice.
Yeah, it just doesn't, because I like to be in control of myself, in my situation, like my mind. I feel if I drink, I have less control over that. So it's just more for me about being in control of what I can be in control of, which is my own mindset and my body and everything like that. So I just don't drink. But if I do drink, I know I just won't, because I don't really want to get drunk. I'm not someone who wants to just get drunk and just get blasted and just be a bit. I'm not like I said, I'm not like crazy when I'm drunk, but just like I'd rather just be in control of my own state of mind as well, know what I'm doing and doing the right thing in the right amount and the right way. So I'm quite lucky because even if I drink quite a lot of alcohol, the only thing I do is dance. I'm just a dancer, which makes my girlfriend or my family or whoever I'm with laugh. So it's not kind of enhances my personality, I guess, a little bit. We'll go on to justice now. If you do the right thing, no matter the personal risk. Yeah, I'd agree with that for myself. Yeah, I feel like I'm honest enough that I would say no if that was the case, but I feel like I do. Yeah. And then we'll go to wisdom, which is finding the right kind of information, which I know in this day and age, it can be so difficult to do with the amount of information and misinformation that gets put out there. How well do you think that applies to you?
Yeah,
Wisdom?
Yeah, very well as well. I'd say I'm quite similar to you in the sense of the type of books that I read. I'm quite a reader actually. In our studio next door, I have my whole collection in there. Yeah, so I have probably 50 or 60 books here in the studio. Then I have obviously books that I have under my bed at home. I've been into reading, self-development, self-betterment, whatever you want to call it. I've been into reading those books for like the last decade now. So very much so. And I listen to Chris Williamson, Andrew Huberman podcasts. I don't watch the news. I don't read newspapers. I don't read magazines. I don't really give a shit about a lot of stuff that most people seem to care a lot about. I don't just switch off from it. And I say a lot of it doesn't really affect you anyway. I see a lot of the news or anything like that. A lot of it is just so negative as well these days, and it's just not something you need. Like what you put into your mind and body affects you mentally as well, like mentally. So why are you just going to watch all this? Like a lot of TV shows and like films and stuff like that, I don't really bother with because a lot of it is pointless to me. A lot of it's meaningless. I don't really gain anything from this. Whereas reading the books, like any books, like self-help books or self-improvement, just like Stoic books, I know that's going to be better for me and it's going to better my own life from reading this because I'm going to gain knowledge that I can apply to myself. Whereas watching some TV series about some meaningless thing, I get it. Some people want to enjoy themselves and have a bit of a chill, and I get that. But like a switch off.
Yeah, and it's just every day, like your entire evening, especially if you're working like a 9-to-5 job, what do you want to do in them spare hours that you have? Do you want to just fill it with useless stuff? Or do you want to start working on yourself a bit more? And for me, I want to work on myself. I don't want to stay in that 9-to-5 job where I'm not like going back to control because I want more control of my life and what I do.
Yeah. You want to live a life on your terms.
Yeah. And if I'm just not doing anything in them spare hours I have, then I'm just going to be living the same day. And I'm just going to be living the same day every day, really. And it's not going to be able to grow from that. And then, but because mentioned this when we're talking about topics as well, because a lot of stuff, I think Stoicism, discipline plays a huge part in Stoicism as well. Like a lot of them, I think it was Seneca or Epictetus, they would used to have cold plunges. Some of them would go, like, I think they'd go hunting as well.
They were a thing back then, were they?
Yeah. I remember seeing someone talk. I think Ryan Holiday talked about it, funnily enough, on like a podcast I saw. But he talks about how they would do discipline was a huge part for them. They go out, hunting, cold plunges. I think one of them, I think it was Epictetus, would walk on the hot days. He'd walk barefoot to feel like the heat on his feet. And cold days, same thing. So Stoics know about discipline. They apply it to their own lives. And for me, because you always hear motivation versus discipline. And there's a saying that I've heard as well, and I strongly agree with. It's motivation alone won't take you to the finish line. Discipline will. True. Because motivation is not going to be there every day. There can be days where you don't feel motivated to do that. Where you like with gym, like in the morning, you're like, oh, okay, I just want to chill. Or like the cold plunge in the morning. You're just like, you're in bed, you're warm, you're cozy, and you're not feeling motivated. That's why you need that discipline. You need that control over your mind and your body to take charge of that. So the question I was going to ask you is, how do you stay disciplined? Because I know I know from what you've told me and from what I've seen, you're a very disciplined person. So how do you stay disciplined?
Yeah, I am pretty disciplined to be fair to myself, which sounded really arrogant. But I think it's a good flex to have, really, isn't it? If you are somebody who is quite disciplined. Habit trackers and being pretty obsessive with them is my way of staying disciplined on something. I like to begin on Monday and have my habits laid out in front of me with all their empty tick boxes. And I like getting to a Friday, but I'm really geeky about it. So I review my week at the end as well. So I actually look back at how many boxes I ticked, what I didn't. And again, that comes back to integrity and temperance as well, by looking at it and being like, okay, well, I have like 6 empty boxes here. I'm clearly not, for example, going to bed at the time I said I wanted to go to bed.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you say about, so that's how I personally would say that I stay more disciplined. I think if I didn't have a habit tracker, I probably wouldn't be as disciplined, because there's something about waking up in the morning, looking at the floor with my mat on it, with YouTube up, ready to start a HIIT workout that I really don't want to do, because like you said, I've just been in a nice warm bed. But then I see that habit tracker list and I'm like, I can't leave them boxes empty. I've got a ticket. So that's kind of where I find my discipline. Also having a why as well, like a distant why as to why you're doing the things as well, helps you to be a bit more disciplined. But it's funny you say about motivation and discipline, because they're actually very, very different in my opinion. Like you said, a lot of people think that you need motivation to go to the gym. You need to find that motivation that's just going to appear from somewhere, whereas that's not the truth. Motivation is a direct response to an action, to results from an action. So actually, it would go discipline first. You need to have the discipline to say, I'm going to go to the gym at 5 a.m. tomorrow, wake up and have the discipline to get in the car, have the discipline to drive all the way to the gym, have the discipline to get out, to get changed, to get in the gym and start pushing the weights around. And then from that, over time of doing that, you're going to get results. And then from those results, you're going to be like, damn, I look really good. That's giving me motivation. Yeah. So that's where I would, if I had to give someone, even though it's not been asked, if I had to give someone my piece of advice on that, I'd say discipline, find it in your daily habits, consciously bring in habits that support your goals. And then obviously you'll get motivation naturally from that.
I liked what you said about the reflection as well, looking at your past, like looking at the week you've had, because I think self-reflection is a very important thing to have, seeing what you've achieved and seeing what you've missed as well. Because then you can see, okay, like you say, there's been boxes not ticked. Why have I not ticked these? What can I learn from this? What happened on these days, or what happened with these points in my day that haven't led me to achieve this? And then you can grow from that as well. You can learn from that. Say, okay, this time, was there something not in place? Like people have habits, like habit stacking, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so when you stack a habit on top of another one, and then maybe just having that applying into your own day-to-day basis to make it more easier for you. Like for me, what I would do before is when I wake up, I'd have my journal. When I wake up, my journal would be downstairs by when I get my drink, like a drink of water. So that way, okay, I know that's there now. Yeah. I can pick this up whilst having my drink of water in the morning, and I can write about, okay, how am I feeling for today? What's my day going to be like? Yeah. Or if I wanted to do more reading, for example, I'd have my book on my pillow. I'd put it there in the morning after I've done my bed. And that way at night, when I'm about to go into bed, I can see the book there. And then it reminds me, okay, I'm going to read some pages tonight and then I can go to sleep.
Yeah.
So I think like them sort of stuff is good, but reflection, you can learn how to do, it makes you learn how to do them things, put them pieces into place.
Yeah.
But without them, you wouldn't be able to do that, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's a good quote with discipline I like, because like I was saying to Callum before, you can't have discipline without consistency. You need both. I think you need them hand in hand to work together. And then there was a quote I wanted to say from Rainey Lackner, which is, discipline is not about perfection. Discipline is about continuity. Because if you're not consistent, you don't continue what you're doing, and you're not really, it's not really discipline. I guess you can say it kind of is motivation in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of like being disciplined once or twice.
And then
you need to consistently be disciplined. Yeah.
And even if that is discipline, just doing it once. Because I think once you start, like the hardest thing to do when starting something new is just starting it, just doing it. Because if you can do it once, then you can do it every day. It's just whether or not you want to do it. And I think as well because we talked about habits, to get good habits into place, you need to avoid environments that make it difficult. It's like when we're talking before about drinking and stuff or having a takeaway. When you're in that environment with them people, it makes it so much harder to avoid not having that steak instead of the burger, like chicken nuggets or whatever. So avoiding them environments is going to make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be in a situation where you feel like you have to have them chicken nuggets. Whereas if you're in a better environment, an environment that is working towards your habits, then you're more likely to have the steak. Like you having the mince earlier.
Yeah.
Because you're in an environment that works best for you, it's a lot easier for you to then just have that.
Yeah.
You're not surrounded by like everyone else having the fast food or the drinking.
And also with that, it's the meal prep as well, like preparing for it. Because if I didn't make that this morning, I'd be here all day at the studio with nothing. So I'd have to go and find something somewhere else. And the best thing that I've found when I've been in that situation, I haven't had meals prepped for me here. Not that anyone else preps it, I prep it myself, but is in Tesco's. Have you ever seen, they do the gym kitchen?
No, I've not seen that, no.
Yeah, and they're like fully like calorie counted. They've got the protein, they've got all the macros, micronutrients, everything on the sides of the box. And they're actually not that bad. They're pretty good. So if I'm ever in a pinch, I'll go and get those. Yeah. But I'm trying to stay clear of McDonald's and all of that stuff.
As clean as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that. Going back to it as well with discipline, because you like with being in a cold, like for being a cold plunge or going gym or any other things you want to add into your life, a lot of them are uncomfortable situations that you don't want to be in. So the point of that is you need to get comfortable being in uncomfortable situations. You need to put yourself through them challenges. It's like starting the day off with something hard like gym or doing a cold plunge. Because once you start that day off with that, something hard, something that you've had to overcome your mind and body for, it then just makes the whole day easier. Knowing that if you can get past this uncomfortable situation, what else can't you do? What else can't you get through the day? And what was I going to put on? I put something on here as well, but how discipline and being discomfort is also key to personal growth, because it's taking you back control of your own mind. Like again, going back to Stoicism, learning to focus on what you can control. If you can't control your mind, what else can you really control?
Yeah, agreed. I think on that, because I did cold plunges for probably 5 months, probably 5 or 6 months. And they're obviously very, very difficult. They are disgustingly horrible when you're in there. And I think it might have been on the Huberman Lab podcast, actually, where they said, oh, no, sorry, it's Tony Robbins. There was Tony Robbins and he was talking to somebody else on the podcast, and they said that they quit doing the cold plunges because they said they just didn't get any real value from it. And Tony Robbins said it's because you're focusing on the feeling of getting in. You're not focusing on that feeling of what it's like when you actually get out, which is obviously a bit more of a euphoric feeling. But yeah, I mean, I stopped doing cold plunges. Yeah, I would say it's a little bit because it was difficult to do every morning, but then I also don't really feel like I'm the type of person that needs to do that.
Yeah.
I think that they're brilliant, and I think they do have definitely when I've got it. Do you do cold plunges?
I was saying, we talked about Callum. I do, because I don't have a cold plunge, I just have a cold shower. Yeah. Which isn't the same, it's not the same effect, but I can still feel it as well.
You still feel it. Yeah, for sure. That's how I started with cold showers. and then I went straight to the bath and I would fill it up with freezing cold water. Then I got into the stage of actually freezing big bottles of water and putting them in there as well. And then I actually bought one of the, I can't remember what brand it is, but actually bought one of them. So I was doing them like fully every morning. And obviously there's the whole thing of like the dopamine spike, and you do genuinely, you kind of get to a point where you're in there and it's really horrifically cold, and then you get this sort of warm feeling of like, almost like a warm feeling of happiness that comes over, and that sort of that peak isn't like a sharp peak. You probably know all this anyway, but it lasts over sort of 4 to 6 hours, which is brilliant and it feels great. But like I said, for me, I already feel like I'm quite a happy, content person anyway.
Yeah.
So for people that have depression, etc., I'd say definitely do them. But I think that's why I kind of stopped doing it, because it was just another thing I had to like put in my morning, which then takes me away from spending time with my daughter or getting to the gym quicker and getting back and getting to work. So yeah, I stopped doing them.
There's a lot of, because I feel like with being with discomfort as well, and because like something I was saying before, we have everything we need or don't need at our fingertips. Like everything's just acts available to us. Whereas back then with our ancestors, they'd have to go hunting, they'd have to, scavenge for their food or anything like that, or find places to live. But whereas this day and age, everything's just at our fingertips that we need. And so it's too easy for us. I think a lot of people just have it too easy, and they're not willing to push themselves or challenge themselves or get their mental wins every day. Or just not every day, just maybe every other day, just like the cold plunge or join gym. And people just don't, we just come a bit lazy as a society now, where no one's really wanting to challenge themselves or push themselves to be that in that discomfort.
Yeah. Do you think as well that as a society in general, on the whole, everyone seems to be a bit sadder as well?
Yeah.
You're right in saying that. Nobody really challenges himself. Everyone's got the Amazon mindset of like, I can just order it online, it will come tomorrow. It'll be just everything's instant gratification as well. But yeah, I feel like that. I feel like just in general, like mental health was not something that really people like. They did speak about it, but it was like a little bit taboo, and it was definitely much, much lower numbers. I feel like now everyone has mental health issues, and it's just a huge, huge thing. I
feel like it gets given out too easily as well. Like as soon as someone's sad, someone says, like something little could happen to them, they're just a bit sad, and someone says, you got depression. Just for that little thing that just happened. It may just be one thing that's happened to them, or just having a bad day, and people just automatically say, you've got depression or something's wrong with you. And it just it's too generalized now. Yeah. It's just so common where it doesn't seem like it actually is. Whereas lots of people just are just accepting it in a way. It seems too easy. And I think with social media as well, everyone just posting about it and saying, I'm feeling this way, I must have it. And people reading that or watching it are just like, I know, I feel that way sometimes too. Maybe I'm depressed. Yeah. Where you just had a bad day.
Yeah, not a bad life.
One little day doesn't actually.
Yeah. And I think there is obviously we're not even talking about that as a subject, but there's also, I think, a big difference between being depressed and having depression.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Two completely different things, really, aren't they?
Yeah, and there was something I was gonna mention on here as well. Where I put it, where is it? It's just people just sort of aren't taking back control of their own mind in a way. They're just sort of letting life happen for them instead of letting them control their own life and taking action. Yeah. Something bad happens to them. Like, again, going back to what we can and can't control, people are just sort of letting everything be controlled for them, including their own mind, just not taking action. Say, okay, I'm feeling this way. Why am I feeling this way? Is there anything I can do about this to stop this or change this? Yeah. If there is, okay, take action. If there isn't, just don't worry about it, because it's out of your control, so you shouldn't be thinking about it. It's like, if this thing doesn't, it's like the saying, if this doesn't matter in 5 years' time, I shouldn't spend more than 5 minutes thinking about it.
Yeah, true.
Because if it's not going to affect you in the long run, or if it's not going to affect you in a week or a day's time, why would you let that take control over yourself and your mind in the first place? Yeah.
And again, on that podcast I was listening to, they were saying about how like 90% of the things that we worry about, they don't even come to fruition. They don't even happen. And like we end up, I think they were saying the term that they used was something about already died 1,000 deaths or something like that, which is just to say that Like we've worried about it so much and gone over it so many times because obviously the mind doesn't know what's actually real, what's really happening to it. So it's already been through it a million times, already felt all the bad shit about that thing. And then it don't even happen anyway. So we've just wasted so much of our time. So I do love that about Stoicism, that it is very much about what you can control.
And like I've said, mentioned a bit earlier on about being in the present moment and being mindful, because I think anxiety comes from thinking in the future, and depression comes from thinking in the past.
Yep.
Whereas the past can't be changed. There's nothing you can do about the past. All you can do is learn from it and use what you've learned to apply it to now and within the future. Yep. And the future, you don't even know what's going to come. Yeah. So why even worry about it? You don't know what's going to happen the next day or the day after that. You may have ideas or may say, okay, this may happen, but you don't know for certain. Yeah. So there's no point in planning about it. It's like people going into like the office job on after a weekend saying, Monday, this is probably going to happen. This is going to happen. Getting all worried about it and getting all like anxious about it. But really they have no idea what could happen. It could be a great day for them. Yeah. But they're too fixated on the fact that they just already are planning for that to already be a shit day. Yeah. They have, like you say, the mind doesn't know what's real and what's not real. So if you're already imagining these scenarios in your head, you're instantly just going to feel shit.
Yeah. Which has an effect also on the physical side of your body as well. Yeah. I think I might have got that wrong there. I think it's the body that doesn't know the difference between what's going on, whether what's real and what's not, whichever one it is. But yeah, even our body, the biology, the makeup of our body is affected by that physically. Yeah. And it hasn't even happened.
So if you think badly, I think this is from Joe Dispenza, which I know some people are a bit hit and miss with him, but he talks about how something happened to this woman in her past. And because she's been constantly reminded of it, people asking her about it, asking if she's okay and everything like that, or this happened to you, how do you feel about this? Because she was being constantly reminded of it, she then started to get ill physically as well. Right, yeah. And she just got to that point where she just couldn't really cope. She had kids as well, she couldn't even manage them. But then she started to get back into the present moment, started meditating, journaling, but just more so just focusing on being in that present moment where everything's okay. Like something may have happened to you a few minutes ago, but that's a few minutes ago. If you're focusing on the present moment now, you're okay, you're alive, you're still here. And once she started focusing on that, she was just got much better. It's like started feeling better. Because like we talked about, if you're focusing too much on what's happened in the past or worrying about what's in the future, you're not really focusing on what's around you right now. Yeah. Not focusing on what's important to you in this moment. Because I think, like I was talking with Callum about gratitude, not even just waking up in the morning, just realizing, okay, you made it through another night, you're alive. You should be grateful that you're still here today. There's the reason you're here today. Are you going to let that day just be full of shit and like just worrying about thoughts that aren't even real or whatnot? And just taking back control of that mind. Say, okay, I'm right here, I'm right now. What can I do in this moment? What can I do? I'm going to have a good day. Okay, you may not know what's going to happen, but at least if you're having that positive thought, you're planning for a good day, most likely it's going to be a good day. Yep. And I think going back to, I want to go back to discipline now as well and talk about consistency. Because I've got on here about perfection versus consistency. Because people with perfection, because people want everything to be perfect. They want everything to be the best it can be. But that also really results in procrastination because you're never going to get that perfect moment. You're never going to get that perfect time.
Trust me, as a filmmaker, I know that more than anything. Yeah.
But when you do, and because you're not going to get the result you want because it's not the perfect conditions, a lot of people just get frustrated by that and just give up. Whereas consistency will lead to momentum. If you're consistently doing something, like the podcast as well, like for myself, the more consistent I'm doing this, the easier it is for me. At the start, I was a bit shaky, a bit nervous, anything like that. But the more consistent I've been with it, the easier it's been for me as well to record and talk on here. Yep. And again, like I didn't want to, at first when I was thinking about doing the podcast, I was planning everything to be perfect, like everything, imagining everything in my head. And I was just it was procrastination because I wasn't just doing it. I wasn't just saying, okay, I need to start this and then just take it day by day and just keep working on it and keep working on myself and just building from this as well. And again, it goes back to like the habit tracker as well. You build habits by being consistent. The habits are never going to form if you're not consistent with this and you're just going up and down. Because eventually, it's like going with gym. If you keep missing days and keep going back and forth between that, you're not sticking to your habit, but you're also just going to end up back where you were at the start, and just going to take you even longer to get where you want to be. So, and I was going to say, I've got another quote here from Tim Nocti, I believe that's how you say his last name, which is, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It's so true as well. You can have all the talent you want, but if you don't do anything with that, it's just meaningless. Like some of the best basketball players in the world, like they put in work consistently every single day. They have that discipline. They have that consistency. And that's always going to beat those who are just naturally talented and just feel they can show up on a day and perform. Whereas they're not going to be they're not going to be the successful ones. Those who put in that hard work are always going to win.
Yeah, it's weird that you say that. I literally saw a reel the other day on Instagram, maybe even yesterday, maybe even this morning, and it was like different snippets of people like Cristiano Ronaldo, Mike Tyson, and they were literally saying that like we live in a world where, to a degree, everyone within a sport or an industry are talented. There's a lot of talented people, but talented is not necessarily going to make you number one in the thing. It's consistency. Yeah, being completely consistent in it. And it's also funny because in the filmmaking world, there's a saying which is done is better than perfect. And it's about knowing when, basically in a nutshell, is when you're working on an edit, you could work another 40 hours on that edit. You could make it fractionally better. But there comes a point where you've just got to hit export and just finish that project to move on to the next one. So that's a very real thing, is being a bit of I hate the fact that I'm a bit of a perfectionist because it slows my work down loads.
I think with me before, I was like, especially with doing the podcast as well, I was planning for it, I was prepping for it, getting everything right in my own head, doing all the work, like research behind it. But I just wasn't doing it. I just wasn't actually starting it. So all of that was helping me in a way, but I didn't actually start doing this, and I could have started before and just kept learning along the way and be further than I am now. But I realized that when I started, it was just, wow, this is just, it's great now that I've started it. It was so much better. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I wish I did. I was saying to myself, I wish I had just started this before and just actually just cracked on with it. Because like you say, you're never going to there's no perfect time to do something. You just got to start now.
You're never going to be fully ready to do something. Same with the gym as well. I'm so bad at being like, oh, it's cool. I've had a pizza on a Thursday night. I'll have Friday, Saturday and Sunday off and start again on Monday because I'll be ready by Monday, weirdly. But that's just not the case. No. Your body's never ready to commit to that thing, and no time is better than now.
It's like people right now. Like people will talk about it in December, saying, "Oh, I can't wait for January. I can start going gym." It's like just start now. Yeah, just start now.
Get ahead of it.
Just get ahead of it.
You'll be obsessed with it by January, and you won't quit.
Yeah. And okay, now because we talked about this as well, I want to go into habits again. Because I know we touched on it a little bit about habit stacking and tracking. But how do you get rid of the bad habits in your life? What have you done to get rid of them?
That's a really good question, because most people would just talk about the actual habits that I do and the things I've consciously brought in. I guess reviewing stuff, because I think by not doing certain habits is actually the bad habit, if that makes sense. Because I'm quite basically what I did I kind of probably 2 or 3 years ago, not that I massively needed to, but about 2 or 3 years ago, I quote unquote tried to reinvent my life. And my way of doing that was literally getting a piece of paper, drawing a line down the middle, writing all the things that I dislike and I'm uncomfortable with and the things that are just not going brilliant in my life. And then on the right hand side, writing all the things that I want to bring into my life. And I think, without getting too far into it, I think the way that you've got to do that is you have to have say for example, a 10-year goal, and then a 5-year goal that supports the 10-year goal, and then a yearly goal, and then maybe even break it down into quarters as well. And all of those are all kind of directed towards your legacy, like what you want to leave behind, what you want to achieve in life, what you want to do. And then I think from that, you can look at that and say, to be that person and to do that stuff, I need to bring in these habits consciously. So I don't really honestly have like any habits that I'm consciously trying to get rid of, if you know what I mean. But for me, my issues and my quote unquote bad habits are me not ticking off the habits that I have consciously brought in, if you know what I mean. So mine are not to obviously bore anyone with what all my daily habits are, but the things like doing HIIT workouts, going to the gym, 10,000 steps, drinking 2 liters of water, stuff like that, they're kind of non-negotiables for me now. But if I don't do the HIIT workout for like 3 or 4 days in a row, that's a bad habit to me. It's the habit of not doing the habit is bad, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I don't directly have anything that I consider a bad habit, to be honest. It's
with goals as well, I think, because some people have like a goal for gym, for example. They want to hit, okay, I want to be 85 kg lean, something like that.
Yep.
And they'll set that goal. And they'll go gym, they'll do it every day maybe, eat the right food or something like that. But then once they've reached that, and I've learned this from, I think you have this book as well, James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Yep, Atomic Habits. Yeah.
And he mentions about how when someone has a goal, so like the 85 kg, we'll say, for example, they've done everything they can to reach that goal. But because they haven't got the habits in place, they just go in gym every day, random times or whenever fits them, maybe always after work. But because they've not got the habits in place, once they've reached that 85 kg, they'll just stop.
Yeah.
Because there's no habits to keep them from keep doing it.
Yeah.
They'll just say, okay, I've reached my goal, I can stop now.
Yeah.
But when you have them habits in place, you can then once you've reached that goal, you can go, okay, what's my next goal now?
Yeah.
I'm going to stay at 85 kg. Am I going to go up? Am I going to go down now a little bit? What else am I going to do with that? Because you've got them habits in place already, it's going to make it so much easier for you to then reach that next goal.
Yeah.
So that's why, for me, habits are more important than goals, because once they reach that goal, that's it.
Yeah.
You're over and done with now. And then you just stop and you just go. And most people then will go back into their old habits again, take away or just saying, it doesn't matter now, I've reached it. I can just eat what I want. I can do what I want now, go drinking or whatever. So that's why, for me, the habit, getting that in place first and having a routine as well is important.
Yeah.
I know some people don't need a routine to function, but for me, it just makes my life a lot easier and I'm able to plan things out at every moment. So because I work as well, I can then plan around that as well.
Yeah.
Do you
Especially if you are a busy person, then you need to have a bit of a schedule and a structure and a routine.
And he talks about being like with consistency as well. Even sometimes you may not have that much time if you're busy, but say just getting a quick workout at home, for example, like maybe like a half an hour, 20 minutes, just like press ups, core, do whatever you can. You're staying consistent with that, so then you're more likely to continue doing that.
Yep.
Some people just say, okay, I can't do this today. I've got no time. I'm just going to lash it. I'm just going to forget about it for today. Then tomorrow comes, it's another busy day. Okay, it's another one. I can't go gym. I'm just going to just leave it. And then they'll just start to fall off their habits and then go back into the old routine of what they were doing before.
Yep.
And so that's why you've also just got to stay consistent with that, no matter what the circumstances are. You may not always be able to do what you need to do, go gym or have as much time as you need to there. But as long as you just try and find a way to stay consistent with that, then you're easily going to be able to reach them goals with the habits in place.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
And there's a few things I've got here about how to make habits easier, like making them attractive. Like dopamine is a huge motivator in your habits as well. Like I think a lot of people, like with smoking, it's not necessarily the smoking that they get the reward from. It's the feeling they feel after that. Yeah. But you actually get the same feeling from working out. So it's then just making it, okay, if you're going to get the same feeling as that, why not just replace it with that? When you normally have a cigarette, like in a work break or something like that, especially if you're working from home, why not just have a quick, like a 15, 10 minute like workout where you're going to get the same effects as you would having that cigarette. Or for example, I was talking about as well, I think I mentioned it with Callum, about habit stacking, or like I mentioned earlier about if I'm going to have my morning water, like with some salt or something like that, have that journal next to it. So that way I can just, whilst I'm having my drink, I can then use my journal. And it makes it that much easier for me. Just making it something easier or something to look forward to. So once I've done that journal, I can go, okay, I can now do what I want to do. I can do something I wanted to do, like have maybe food or something like that, or go for like a workout or something like that. Just making it that much easier for me to stick to the habit. And again, going back to consistency, like sometimes you may not always, sometimes I think people overset their goals in a way. Like they want to stay, for example, like with reading, they say, okay, I want to read. I need to get back into reading, for example. I want to do 4 books a month or something like that, a book a week. And because you set such a big goal and you realize once you start reading, oh shit, I'm not going to achieve this at all. This is way too much. I'm just going to stop now. There's no point.
Yep.
Whereas if you start small, say, okay, forget about how many books I'm going to read. I'm just going to start by reading 2 pages a night. And then once they've done that first night or first few nights, they can say, oh, wow, this is a lot easier than I thought. Let me just move up to 5 pages and then 10 pages. Yeah. And by the time you know it, you're already hitting more than what you already wanted to achieve in the first place.
And another good thing you can do in that sense is not necessarily just the putting an amount on the pages number-wise. You could just put like a time frame on it as well.
Yeah.
So instead of doing that, which is a really lofty task to read 4 books a month anyway. Well, it depends what the book is, I suppose. Have you ever read the 4 Agreements?
I've seen it.
That's a really short book.
I want to get on that.
Short book.
Yeah, I've only heard about it. I've not actually read it myself.
Absolutely incredible book. Loved it. But going back to it, I think it's instead of setting yourself the target of reading 4 books a month or even a certain amount of pages, it can be a bit less daunting to say, I'm just going to read when I get in bed tonight. I'm not going to put any pressure on it. I'm not going to do anything like that. Just from tonight, I'm going to start reading.
Yeah.
And if I get 10 minutes done, cool. I'm like, I can only read for like, even if I set myself to read 10 pages, for example, I did the 75 hard for a little bit. We was talking about that earlier. Yeah. And in that you have to read 10 pages a day. But like by the time I get in bed, I'm nearly falling asleep as soon as my head hits the pillow. So it's a struggle for me to read 10 pages. So the point I'm making is instead of setting the target of doing that, just say to yourself, just read. Yeah. Just read until you've fallen asleep.
Just see how many pages you do.
Yeah, you're still consuming the content, but you're going to be more consistent with it because it's a bit easier to do and you're not putting pressure on yourself.
And it comes, I think, with habits as well, the best way to be going to build the habits, again, something I mentioned before, is having that willpower and the discipline. Because you're not always going to get that satisfaction in the first moment, like with gym or with reading. It's going to be a delayed gratification that you're going to receive from it, which people want something now. So like I said before, discipline is putting something you want now, avoiding something you're going to have something you want now, but it's not having that because you're going to get something better later on. It's like, have you heard of the marshmallow experiment with the kids?
No.
So it's where this doctor or this scientist, whoever, puts these kids into a room one at a time, says to them, okay, you can have 1 marshmallow now, or you can have 2 marshmallows in 15 minutes time or half an hour's time. And he'd then leave the room. I think it was about 70% of the kids would eat the 1 marshmallow straight away and wouldn't wait for it. They wouldn't wait for the more marshmallows afterwards, that delayed gratification. Yeah. And it showed that those and they tracked them throughout their lives, and those who waited and had that willpower and discipline went off to live successful lives, hard workers, did really well in their life. And it just shows you that if you can have that willpower, you just wait for the results. Don't just give up straight away because you're not seeing anything. You can't, you just want it now. You realise there's going to be so much more benefits to just having that delayed gratification, 100%. Just waiting.
Yep, 100% agree.
It all comes from the discipline as well. And again, going back to consistency as well and building the habits, there's something I read as well about, I think it was in James' Atomic Habits book, about saving money, or maybe I read this somewhere else, but people who want to save, for example, save money, they put a little bit away every day. And if they keep checking it every day, they're not going to see it. It's like looking at yourself in the mirror every day with gym after a workout. You're not going to see the money. You're not going to see it grow really much over that few days every day. But over time, say like you're saving for a house, for example, if you look every single day, you're not going to see much money being saved. So you're probably just going to give up after a week and say, okay, there's not much here. What's the point? But if you wait and leave it for a long time, watch it just gradually grow. By the time you know it, you've already got that money you saved for like a mortgage or whatever you wanted, a holiday, for whatever you wanted. But people just don't see that. They don't see the instant results. And so they're like, nah, fuck this. There's no point in me doing this anymore.
Yeah. That leans into a really cool saying that I heard once about how if you look at your life day to day, nothing really seems to be changing. Things just seem to be, but if you look at it like your life now compared to last year, it's completely different. Or like yourself compared to 4 years ago, you're in a completely different life. Well, I know I am. Yeah. I feel like I've lived about 8 lives in my lifetime.
No, I look at my life as well, like the past, like even with the last year, I wasn't even doing this last year. I may have been prepping about it and talking about it to people, but it's completely different now. And I'm kind of glad I did talk to people about this and say, I'm going to do a podcast, because it kept me on that.
Yeah,
and made sure, and it made me accountable for myself and realize, okay, I've talked about this a lot now. I've told people, I mentioned saying, when you're doing it, I can't wait to be on it. So then it just sort of made me realize and think about it. So, okay, I've talked about it so much now, I actually need to do it, because otherwise I'm not just going to, it doesn't really matter if I disappoint these people as much, but I'm also let myself down, having all these, I like planning it, being prepared for everything, and just sort of just not going through with it. And it's like I said to Callum as well, it's better to fail than to not even try in the first place, because you never know what could have been if you don't even give it a go. Like some stuff you may, and I think you only, and there's nothing wrong with failing anyway. I think it's a good thing. People, like all these successful people, have failed hundreds of times, but what they've done is the reason they're successful, not like losers, for example, or like who give up. Is they've seen them fail as ways they can learn and improve on themselves and grow from it, and see, okay, I failed now, what can I do to better myself from this? What can I learn from this? And what can I do to grow? It's like with each podcast I watch of myself, like from the first one to now, I can then look at this and say, okay, what have I done on here? What do I like? What don't I like? What can I change from this? Instead of just being after my first one, I don't like my voice, I don't like what I said here, and just stopping it, saying, nope, I don't want to do this anymore. I'll never actually see what this could have achieved. And just by continuing to do this, I can then see what can actually become of this. And I think I remember seeing something about podcasts. It's like, you'll be in the top 0.001% of podcasts if you get past 21. And it's that easy to do it, but everyone just doesn't. They don't like the failure. They don't like seeing themselves not succeed in anything straight away. Whereas this could take, I don't know how long it could take to blow off, but we'll never know.
It's also, I think with podcasts as well, just touching on podcasts, obviously being a podcast business, we are constantly like looking at insights and statistics and stuff. And I think it really is down to, you're quite lucky, obviously I'm not just saying this because you're here, but you're quite lucky that the stuff that you talk about is very niche. It is actually very niche as a topic for podcasts, when you compare it to the fact that 90% of podcasts talk about mental health, as we were talking about earlier. And you get obviously the occasional ones that talk about like fitness, health and fitness, but you're in a good position there with what you do, and you can tell that you've got more confident as your episodes have gone on. So yeah, I think obviously just with yours, you just need to, this is just a complete side quest to what we were talking about before, but yeah, you just need to be consistent with what you're doing. You'll get more confident, you'll get more, the conversation will start to flow more, and you'll just, the topics and stuff you talk about are really cool. Not just because I like them topics, but
I think they're important as well, because not a lot of, because they're all topics I like, topics that have helped me in my own life. And I know people that have helped them in their own, like I know view Stoicism as well. I'm talking about being mindful.
Mine more than that is that, because obviously we'll come on to hopefully talk about like The Power of Now, which is still the best book I've ever read in my whole life, and I've read it probably 6 times since then.
Is that Eckhart
Tolle? Yeah. So it's a very important book to me. But I mean, well, I'll leave what I wanted to say until we get to that part.
I think it'd be the next topic as well. Anyway, we're going to go on to.
Oh right, okay, cool.
But I think going back to what we're saying about the podcast, like the topics have really helped me with my own self improvement, self growth, made me realize. And again, something we mentioned before about reflecting, having that time to reflect on myself. Maybe after the day, at the end of the day, reflecting on how my day's gone. Or at the end of the week and saying, okay, how's my week been? What have I learned from this week? What can I do to improve anything? And even after, like say, after a year, because people feel like, I'm not where I want to be right now. But look where you were. Are you in a better position than where you were like a year ago or 2 years ago? And if they go, okay, great. Just keep going. If you want to improve your life, you need to take action. You need to change it. You have control over your mindset and the effort you put into what you want to do. So why not take advantage of that and do it? Just don't let like, you can either let life control you, or you can take control of your life.
If you're not where you want to be and you're in a similar place to where you was, then that comes down to, for me, that comes down to what your daily habits are. It's all in the daily habits. Everything, success or failure, is all in the daily habits, and what you've consciously chose to bring in based off of what your overall legacy and your goal is. So you're right in saying that, just if if you're in a place that's better than where you was before, then your habits are working, and just double down on them. Just continue on with them.
I was going to say I'll see if I have the quote. I don't know if I do or not. It's okay if I don't, because you've kind of mentioned what I was going to say as well.
Because it's a bit like when you go, say for example, like with the gym, there's 4 billion people on YouTube that are given 470 billion different ways of like doing stuff. And it's really overwhelming for people that don't know much about the gym, for example. But I just feel like it can be so easy. Just if you want to grow, eat more calories than you burn off. If you don't and you want to lose weight, then just eat less calories than you burn off, and just go in the gym and just do compound exercises, and just do those compound exercises over and over again consistently, and you'll get in great shape. Like all this like fluff around the whole fitness stuff. And that for me is the same thing with like habits as well. Like they're very simple, actually. They really are very simple. Like just bring in the habits that you're consciously bringing in because they're going to make your life better, and just stick to them. And then like you said earlier, when you get to the goal and you've achieved the goal, you've got to the physique or you've got the right amount of savings that you target yourself, don't like bring in some other or look for some other mystical habits to bring. Just continue on with the habits. Maybe increase the goal, and the goal might change. Or you might be like, okay, cool, my body looks brilliant. I love my physique. It looks awesome. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to continue on the same habits, but I might maintain it.
Yeah.
I'm just maintaining my body now.
And if you don't see you're reaching them goals with the habits you've got in place, what can you change about them? What habits can you get rid of, or what new habits can you apply?
Yeah, maybe you get to a stage where you're like, oh man, I can see my whole six pack and I feel absolutely brilliant. But then you might be like 2 or 3 weeks or 3 or 4 months after that, you might be like, you know what, I'm looking a bit thin. Like I might need to stop. I might need to take HIIT workouts out, for example, and just do 10,000 steps and go gym. Just those 2 things. And then you might be like, oh, I've put on a bit of fluff. I might need to bring HIIT back in. Do you know what I mean? Just like that, adjusting the habits slightly. But overall, you're going to have a stack of habits. Just stick to those habits daily and you'll be sweet.
And when you mentioned about being conscious of it, because I guess that we could talk about this in a moment as well, being mindful and being in the present moment. But the quote I was thinking of with Carl Jung is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So unless you become conscious, take charge of it, become mindful, start living in the present moment, you're going to roll back into some bad habits, for example. You're just going to let your unconscious mind just take control of your own life for you. You're not going to have that control anymore and just let whatever happens and just say, okay, this was meant to be. But no, you could have changed that. You could have taken action and said, no, this is the route I want to go down, not the one that's already been given to me. I want to start taking these actions to make my life better, put them good habits in place, be consistent with them, be disciplined with them. But now going on to mindfulness and being in the present moment, do you want to talk about the power of now first and what your thoughts are on it? Sure.
What the book?
What you've learned from that book.
Yeah, sure. So this was probably 2017, 2018, so quite a long time ago now. I think I'd read Think and Grow Rich, which was still to this day one of my favorite books ever. I'd read Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins, which was a fantastic book. And I'd kind of just got into the world of self-development then, but I went like hardcore into it. Like I probably was reading a book a month, like flying through all of these books. And the power of now had been in there. And I think throughout my life, I've always I've been pretty damn happy my whole life. I'm quite a content person. I'm quite a fulfilled, content person. I've got a really nice family around me. Like I said, I've never like taken drugs, or I've smoked a bit of weed back in the day, obviously, like everyone has. But never done like drugs or anything like that. I don't have any like childhood trauma. Which I know that in this day and age, I feel quite blessed that I don't have any of those things, because everyone seems to. But I've always been quite fulfilled and quite content. And I feel like reading these self-development books, when I got into that world, it was like I'd picked up a toolbox of like all these different tools that when I know you need to take action on them, there's no point just reading the book. But I would sort of pick up different tools from these things and be like, wow, that's enhanced my life even more in these certain little areas. But then I found the book, The Power of Now, and it just opened up a whole new side, because I feel like there's life as everyone knows it, and then there's life with tools, which you get from all these self-development books and bettering yourself and bettering your life consistently. But then there's the power of now, which for me sits in its own realm altogether. And I've tried to describe it to people, but I can't put into words like the feeling of being present.
Yeah.
But it's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing in the world. And when I first read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, I don't think I put the book down. I even just would walk off into the woods and take it with me and just sit in there. And I remember when the first like couple of times, because I read it 2 or 3 times, nearly back to back, because I loved what I was reading. It really resonated with me what I was reading. And I remember not long after that, I made it like a daily ritual that I would literally leave my phone at home and just go walk off into the woods and not even have a direction, because I was trying to make direction not a thing.
Yeah.
Not caring about the time, because I was trying to make time not a thing, or space or any of those things. I was like, I'm literally leaving my phone, forgetting about everyone else. When I close the front door, it's just me and I just exist in this moment, and I just walk off into the woods. And I remember, this is the only way I could describe it. I remember one time I was walking through the woods and everything felt 5D. It's so hard to explain, but like I felt like for the first time in my life, I wasn't just walking through a woods where the floor was 3D in front of me, but then does it make sense to say like that everything else was just background noise and like everything else was like 2D, like the bushes were flat kind of thing? That's how I think that most people see that.
Yeah.
Until you take a look around and actually look. But to me, after I'd read that and I decided to practice becoming more mindful and present, I feel like I could see like the fiber of every leaf and the depth of how far back certain trees were from other. It was just really, and I could hear like the hum of a plane in the sky. And like, I feel like I could just sense where all the bugs were. And it's so hard to explain.
No,
like,
I know what you mean.
But just an intense feeling of being incredibly present. And all of that is encompassed by just a warm buzz in your belly. And there's no fear and there's no bad, there's no negative. Yeah, so that's my journey with the power now. I've searched for that feeling millions of times since then, but I think that that's the joy of it.
Yeah,
because you're always
trying to
searching to find. I've definitely had like moments where I felt incredibly present, but that's the most present I ever felt was that day.
Well, maybe everything we've talked about with Stoicism, discipline, consistency, I think all of these stem from being in that present moment.
Yeah.
You need to be present, otherwise, otherwise the unconscious is just going to take control of your own life. Your body's going to take control of your own mind. You're just not going to be doing the things you need to do or you want to do because you're letting everything being controlled for you.
Yeah.
So that's why I think having mindfulness and being present is just so crucial to anything you need to do or want to do in your own life, especially personal growth and improving your own self. So I was going to say, I guess you've kind of answered it. I was going to say, how important is it to you to stay in the present moment? But I know it's quite a big thing for you as well.
It's definitely important. It's definitely something that also, as I've got busier, because what I described just a moment ago was actually when I had a YouTube channel years ago and I used to make like a little bit of money off of it. It was during COVID, so I was sort of like working on film projects remotely from home on my own. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time, so again I was just very much like my own self in my own world. So my life's very different now in that obviously I have a house with a mortgage, a new baby, a girlfriend. I've just started a new business. We're opening up different studios, so like my life is chaotic at the moment, so I think it's more important than ever for me to continuously keep bringing myself back to the present moment. I do definitely feel myself flying off sometimes. Like I'll be laying there, I'll wake up at like 3:30 in the morning and be like, oh yeah, but I've got to get that person, I've got to get that done for that one, and then Margot's got this going on tomorrow morning, so I need to be there for that, and then I can't get back to sleep, and then I just just bring yourself back to, you're just in bed, mate. Just in bed, just go to sleep. Now look, you can sort all that stuff the next day.
But it can be hard, all these, especially in the modern day now, there's so many distractions around us, just so much, like phones, like other people, like TV or whatever, like just so many things around you that can just be so hard to take you off being in the present moment. But I think it's good that you get that time away, like just going off on the walk without your phone or anything like that, because people just so weird. As soon as they hear that buzz on their phone, they instantly have to look at it and say, okay, what's this? Who's messaged me? Oh no, it's just a notification about nothing. And then as soon as it buzzes again, they're just instantly having to look at it, just not realizing that they can take a moment and just enjoy being where they are now. Like mindfulness, from like the best description I've heard of it is mindfulness is bringing your attention into the present moment, to be aware of your thoughts and feelings without any judgment of them. Because as you know, your thoughts and feelings will come and go. 1 second you can feel sad, like you just sit and observe that feeling. Why are you feeling sad? And just working through it, and just say, like, again, you can link it to Stoicism. Is there anything I can do about this sad feeling? No, don't worry about it. Then if there's yes, change it. But you don't need to judge them feelings, because I guess they're not, and judge them thoughts because they're not a part of you. They just come and go. Yeah. Like you have people on average. I think people have 60,000 thoughts a day. Like that's a lot of thoughts to go through, and not every single. And people are, and the problem. I think the problem with that is people feel like they're defined by their thoughts. Some people have, like me. My humour's quite dark. I really like dark jokes, like Ricky Gervais. Like, I love him. Jimmy Carr. But people, when you have a dark thought, like a dark, like bad, like sort of dark joke, people just think, oh no, I'm a bad person. And I'm like a bad person. Why am I thinking this thought? But it's just a joke. Like, it's not part of you. That thought just, after a few seconds, that thought's just going to go. It's not going to matter anymore. But people then just get fixated on that.
Yeah, they hook onto it. Yeah.
And then like we talked about before, about anxiety, like thinking in the future about what will happen. And then just get fixated on them thoughts and just don't realize it's just a passing thought. You don't have to hang on to it. You don't have to cling on to it. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't mean as much as you want it to mean, I guess, in a way. Like you don't need to focus on that thought. You just need to say, okay, it's come now, it will go. Just observe, like for meditation, for example, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. But meditation, just sitting there and just like focusing on your breathing, which is like one of the most common ways you can meditate. Just sitting, focusing on breathing in and breathing out. And any thoughts that come, you don't work through them. You just sit and observe them, and then they'll just go.
Become the watcher.
Yeah. But people just get fixated on them thoughts and then start trying to work through them. But that's for me what I quite like. Another way of like being mindful for me is like, journaling as well, writing down any thoughts I've had that I'm fixating on.
Does that help you? Does it? You like?
Yeah, it helps me quite a bit, because I can then, sometimes when you're trying to work through thoughts in your head, you then get other thoughts and then you can get all messy and just muddled up. But if I write them down, then I can say, okay, why am I having this thought? Is there anything that's causing this thought? Or like, again, is there anything I can do about this thought? Is there anything like maybe what I'm worrying about? Why am I worrying about this? And like, again, going back to Stoicism in a way, like people like, and if I'm feeling sad or anything like that, people think Stoicism is about having no emotions, which is far from true. It's about having them. You're having the emotions, but understanding why and why you feel them, and how can you work through them.
You're seeing them as an indicator.
Yeah.
That you need to not judge, but
understand why you're feeling the way you do, and saying, okay, is there anything I can do about this thought? No, because loads of things are going to happen in your life that you may not have control over, but it still affects you in a way. And then, but having them emotions, you're better able to understand them. And once you've worked out why you're feeling the way you do, if something happens again that brings around them same emotions, because you've already worked through them before, and you've already understood why you feel that way, it's easier for you to then say, okay, I know why I'm feeling this way now. And if you're feeling sad, for example, it's easy for you to not feel sad anymore, because you know why you're feeling that way. And then you can just let that thought, like I said, with meditation, just watch it go, because you already know why. So you don't need to worry about it anymore. But I was gonna say, do you meditate yourself?
I don't anymore. I don't anymore. I totally get it and I love it. I think just where I've been, and this is going to sound like an excuse, and it probably is just a really lame excuse, but it's just a time thing for me at the moment. And I know that obviously I could do a meditation when I get in bed at night time, or maybe first thing when I wake up in the morning, but yeah, I don't at the minute. I started off doing the Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation challenge thing. And then from that, I was pretty obsessed with it by the end of it. So I just continued on. And I've done meditation on and off for probably 5 years. But yeah, like I said, I've gone through periods of time where I haven't. And I suppose if I really needed it, if I ever got to a point where I was like, man, it's been 2 or 3 weeks and I'm completely detached from the present moment, I probably would use meditation. Yeah. Meditation or breath work, they both were really, really good when I did them. Breath work for me was, I didn't get the same things that a lot of the circles I hang around with got from it. They were very much like, oh, we saw our inner child and we had a conversation with them. Like that none of that happened for me. But what I did find when I did breath work, have you ever done breath work before? You know, with the big inhale, and then the big exhale and then holding your breath. When I did that, I've never felt peace like it. That's one of the most peaceful feelings, when you take that last breath, breathe it out, and then just sit there with your eyes closed. Man, that's an insane amount of peace. But I'll tell you what I did just very quickly. What I actually did quite recently was with my habits, I used to have breath work, meditation. What was the other one that Andrew Huberman used to speak about? Is it like
non-sleep?
Non-sleep deep breaths. Yeah, so I used to do that in the middle of the day. Ice baths, all that kind of stuff. And basically what I did probably about 6 or so months ago, I was, again, conscious of it. And I was like, I'm waking up in the morning and I'm reaching for my journal, and then I'm going to get an ice bath. Then I'm doing breath work, and then I'm doing a meditation. And I have to look at this, like I said before, I don't think it's like a flex to be like, oh yeah, I'm super happy. Like I think it's a good thing to say that you don't suffer with any mental health issues and you're happy. I looked at those things and I know that they're all brilliant and I know they all have their own things, but they didn't really add much more value to my days. So I just become really like, what's the word? I become really tight with what my habits are. So like the habits that are in my day are really there because they are having a massive impact on my day and my goals. For example, journaling, like I think journaling is brilliant. And there was one thing I got from journaling was I looked at it and there was all these pages, and I had said to my girlfriend, I was like, how mad is it that like if I didn't journal, all of these pages would still just be in my head? So like I do see the benefit of getting it all out onto the thing. Just for me, it didn't add enough value that I wanted to keep it there. And I'm not the kind of person who would be like, oh yeah, it was on YouTube, so I have to do it every day. I guess I just constantly curated. That's the word I was looking for. I constantly would look at my habits and curate it and be like, okay, I don't need to do ice baths. They're really nice and they do have a good effect, but I don't absolutely need to do them. I don't need to journal. I don't need to do meditation for right now. Don't need to do breath work. And what that's done is brought me more freedom. It's allowed me to actually feel even better when I wake up. Like my morning routine, for somebody who believes in all this stuff, my morning routine is the most basic. I wake up, I get a coffee, then I get in the car and drive to the gym. Like I don't do any meditation or journaling or anything like that anymore.
I'll say some people some people don't need to do it. It's just, I think more so for those who just struggle to be in the present moment or be mindful, then it just becomes a bit of an issue for them. But no, I don't think, if it doesn't, some people it works for them, but some people don't need to have it. But like you say with journaling, so I still do at times as well, but more so when I need to. I have a gratitude journal as well. Yeah. So I think that really helps me be in the present moment. And like, cause sometimes, some people have like a shit day or something like that. And then just taking that moment to just realize what you're grateful for, and it gets you back into that present moment. Like you're grateful for, I don't know, being able to have a shower today, being able to eat today, having a car, for example, like a lot of luxuries that we actually have and that we take for granted. Yeah. And it just gets you back into that present moment as well, I think. But going back to, being mindful, it's basically, for me, it helps you to get yourself better. And for that, you're able to see why you do the things you do and the reasons behind them. And then you can also make wiser choices for that because you've got more of a perspective on what's happening. Yeah. And you're able to make better choices for that. You're able to see things more clearly. If something happens to you and you're more focused, it makes you more focused as well. It brings clarity into what is happening to you. Yeah. And from that, you can then make a wiser choice for whatever you're doing, like with the habits, for example, or being more disciplined. Yeah. It's going to help you in the long run for that. But meditation, it's just a practice that some people can use. It's one of the most common practices that people can use to become more mindful. It's just a skill you can develop, but it just trains you. It just trains you to be more focused in a way. But some people don't. You don't need to do that. Like some people think, like mind being like meditation. Some people think that you just need to sit down, close your eyes, and just focus on your breathing. But there's so many different ways you can meditate. Like what you were doing before, going for a walk without your phone. Yeah. Just being like, it is just being in that present moment. Just focusing.
A meditative state. Yeah.
Yeah. But some people like gratitude or journaling. But gym, that's a key skill as well, because you're in the present moment for that. You can't be worrying. You're not worrying about what happens. Like say, for example, like if you go after work, you're not worrying about how shit your day was or how good it was or anything or what happened in the day. You're just focusing on what you're doing at the gym, what workout you're doing.
If you've got an 80 kg bar above your head and you're struggling to get that last rep out, or it's going to crush your chest. You're not thinking about anything else other than that bar.
No, that's why I think like going back to when we talked about before with like being depressed or anything like that. One of the key things I found whenever you feel sad or feeling down, if you go to the gym, you're not thinking about that at all. You're good. And when you've got a strong body, you've got a strong mind as well, because you're making that decision to go into the gym. You're getting that mental whim. And when you have a strong body, you're going to have a strong mind as well, because they work in harmony. They need to work together. And so when one's working, the other one's going to be working. But if you're not, that's why a lot of people, I think this is what I've read from before. I think a lot of people who are like suicide or anything like that, who commit suicide, if you look at their diet, it's 9 times out of 10 it's a shit diet. It's just really bad
sleep,
and because and bad sleep. And because of, I think I mentioned this before on the third one I did with Mitch, I think it's like over 90% of the serotonin you produce is in your gut. So if you're having a shit diet, and that's obviously going to affect you, and you're eating shit food, that's going to affect your gut, and it's going to make your gut feel awful. And so you're going to feel awful because all your serotonin's being impacted. You're not going to have the same mental state that you were when you're eating the clean stuff or you're eating the good food. It's like being happy. Like when you eat good food, after a steak, I feel good. I don't feel bloated. I don't feel shit, because I know that my gut knows it's good for me. It's healthy for me. It's made me feel good. And so that's why I think diet as well is important for you. Going back to like being happy as well. But yeah, going back to the present moment, I really do feel it's one of the key things you can have if you want to get personal growth, where you're more in control of everything around you. You're more focused. You can then make the decisions you want to make to live the life you want to live.
Yeah, agreed. It's for me just been the most life-changing thing. I know that sounds really dramatic to say that, but it really has. There's so many times, like even smaller times, where I've used that. I remember I was saying to my girlfriend recently, I remember one time, because me and my girlfriend talk about like being mindful quite a lot, like between us. We're like, oh yeah, what did you do this week, like to become more mindful? It really is that important to me. But I remember one time I went on a run and I hadn't eaten in the morning, because I like to do fasted cardio. I've got this thing in my head that is even better for you. It might be, it might not be, I don't know enough. But I went for this fasted run in the morning. Excuse me. I went for a fasted run in the morning, and I probably got 5 or 6 miles away from the house. So I had a good 5 or 6 miles to come back to the house. So it would have been like a 10-mile plus run, which is, I'm pretty good at running 10 miles now. Anyway, so I got that distance away. And I looked at my watch and I was like, oh my God, I've got so far to get back to the house and I haven't eaten. But my legs started to feel like a little bit shaky, and I started to, panic's the wrong word, but I was like, oh my God, I'm so far from the house, which means I'm so far from food. I already feel like I'm about to faint in a minute. I feel like I'm going to pass out. And I started to just be a little bit like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I practiced just being like, you're absolutely fine. Like some people fast for like 40 days. You're fine, mate. You're absolute. Just bring yourself back to the present moment. And I walked home almost laughing to myself at what I'd been like before. It's just, but then again, I think that's like what people need to understand. That's a tool. That knowledge is a tool. Because I was able to do that in that moment, whereas some people might have gone the other way. They might have spiraled out, overthinking, oh my God, I'm going to pass out. I haven't eaten. I think I'd actually done almost like a 24-hour fast at the time. So I felt really faint, but yeah.
Well, the last question I've got for you on here is, what advice would you give to someone who is trying to become more mindful or trying to become more in the present moment?
Yeah. Read the book if you haven't read it, The Power of Now. Brilliant book. Somebody who's trying to become more present. Stillness. Search out stillness and silence, and be okay with silence and calmness. There's just such an incredible level of peace and calmness when you find the present moment. And who doesn't want more of that in their life? So yeah, the best thing I can suggest is, maybe doing things like meditation, etc. Making yourself grateful for the present moment. It's funny because obviously some of those things, like you mentioned, like a gratitude journal, situation. When I wake up in the morning, when I open my eyes, the first thing I do is tell myself. So although I don't have a habit tracker that I say I need to go and do a journal with, it's deeply embedded into me now that that's just naturally what I do when I wake up. It's the first thing I do when I wake up. I think, I've got this, I've got that, this is happening, brilliant, this is cool, get up. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm already like setting myself up in that way. Directly, advice that I would give to somebody who's trying to become more present, I would say read that book, do a lot of research on becoming present and the power of being present, because that is a real superpower of yourself. It helps in situations where you could be argumentative with other people. You sort of take a couple of steps back before you say something that could be harmful to somebody else or to yourself in the future. You're going to be able, when you pick up that tool, you're going to be able to live a life avoiding depression, avoiding anxiety, avoiding a lot of shit, I suppose. It helps. It's the most helpful tool. Yeah.
Right, we'll end it there. Unless there's anything you want to ask me.
No. I did want to ask you, what's your views on the law of attraction?
Funny enough, we talked about this one. Funny enough, we talked about it with my two, because when I had the little debate one.
The debate, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a good quote I had for it. I got from Alex Hormozy, which is, you don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. Outwork your self-doubt. Because I feel, for me, like, I guess the mind doesn't know what's real and what's not real. So if you feel like you're going to have a shit day, you say to yourself, I'm having a shit day, you most likely are going to have a shit day because you're attracting that towards you. You're attracting all these shit and bad things to happen to you. But again, if you're just shouting stuff in the mirror saying, I'm great, I'm powerful, I'm strong, but then you go on living that same day as you do every day beforehand with your same job, doing nothing else afterwards, watching the same stuff afterwards, and you're not changing anything else in your life, I don't think anything will happen for you. It's like people say, like for me, if I said to myself every single day, like before the podcast, if I kept saying to myself, I want a podcast, I'm going to have a successful podcast, I'm going to have a successful podcast, but I was doing nothing to work towards that podcast, not even starting it, then it was never going to happen for me. Yeah. But I do believe your thoughts are powerful, because our mind doesn't know what's real and what's not. And so if you don't take action in your own life, and you just carry on living the same day in and out, then nothing will change for you. Yeah. You won't attract things because you're not believing in yourself in a way. You're just sort of saying them just for the sake of saying them. Yeah. So you actually have to take actions to show that, okay, I am confident. I do believe in what I'm saying. I am going to go after this.
Agreed. Yeah.
And that's why for me now, so I will sometimes say it as well to myself. I'm going to have a successful podcast. I'm healthy. I'm strong. But I need to prove to myself to show that I know I am in a way. Yeah. I can't just say it for the sake of saying it because I feel like it makes me feel better. So that's why I feel with some people, if you're just saying stuff in the mirror in the morning and then living the same day you are every single day with no changes, them affirmations become meaningless in a way. And you're not, and if you're not happy with your life, so after you say them, you go, okay, now I've got to go back to my shit job. Yeah. What do you expect? What do you expect to feel like?
Yeah. So it's kind of thoughts plus mindset plus action. Yeah. You've got to take the action on it as well. Yeah.
And I think being in the present moment again is a big part of that as well. Yeah. Because if you're just going back, like say, you say them in the morning and then you're just thinking in the future about your job and what's going to happen, saying, oh, it's going to be a shit day. This is going to happen. It's just, you're just setting yourself up for failure in a way. You need to actually say, okay, I'm this, I'm that, I'm confident, I'm happy, I'm strong. And then be in the present moment. And every so often, because it's all about repetition as well and being consistent. So if you keep saying it every now and then throughout the day as well, and have the actions to prove that, then it most likely will happen for you. But unless you change your mindset about it and change how you feel about yourself, you're not going to see any changes. It just won't happen for you.
Agreed. Cool episode.
Thank you. I definitely have to have you on again.
Yeah, I'd come on for sure.